it literally is just a portmanteau of Ludo being game and narrative being the story of what happens when you play said game. So it can either be the emergent story that happens as a result of playing a game, the story that you tell amongst each other.
That's our next.
Hammy tried to injure himself again.
He's got a talent for it.
Amazing.
I need to tear my own ACL.
Minor sidebar, already getting off track. Before that, on that same day, I had gotten in the car before we went to pick up Chris, and Hammy said, "Hey, I picked up a new hobby." He said, "Look behind you. There was a skateboard in the back seat." So it's all one character. All right. Anyway, story in game in games. So as you can tell, I give a shit about media construction and telling good stories. I also like other things. Sometimes those things have good stories in them. This is good, right? We all like good stories being told. Sometimes shit stories happen. This is upsetting. Sometimes you have a good idea, but you shit yourself mid-sentence. Like I'm going to do a lot here because this is mostly extemporaneous. I only vaguely remember what is in these slides. So we're having fun.
Oh boy.
We're going to talk about some good, bad, and ugly examples of the thing we're actually talking about is stories and settings in the game of Magic the Gathering, which you fucking nerds know nothing about. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
There's going to be 2 examples of each. There was going to be another one, but I ran out of
I
time.
wrote a blog about.
No.
If you've ever watched YouTube channel Spice 8 Rack, this will be about 20% as long and about 20% as entertaining. So
Okay.
go fuck yourselves. All right, so to talk about Magic, before I talk about any of these settings, that we need to talk about what the settings are. Magic takes place across a bunch of different worlds. These are called planes. So what the fuck is a plane? Talked about that already. Come on, press the little button. All right. Each plane has different rules. Sometimes they're just like literally a flat space. Other times they are like whole worlds with like space. Other times they're like other realms like heaven and hell exist inside the scope of this plane where things go when they die. Alright, so some have weirdo rules, like everyone who shows up is a furry or becomes really small, but you wouldn't know that when you're there because everything's really small.
They're like Kingdom Hearts rules.
Yeah, so everybody just becomes a toy, whatever. Yeah. The first one, and for a while, Magic was only set in one place. That's called Dominaria. That's that blue marble there. Is this setting. It's sort of a generic fantasy landscape. A lot of countries and things in it are defined because it spent most of its time there. There was a joke here.
It's a mighty fine dog marriage.
Right? And telling some of these jokes back and forth. Sure. All right.
Sorry, that was funnier than any joke I could have told.
That's fair. All right. So Magic's literal narrative, the story you're telling between the game, is that you are 2 wizards throwing spells at each other throughout the course of this game. The specific kinds of wizards are called planeswalkers. These are the people who can pop in and out of those little worlds. I think I call them extra wizards. Yes, extra wizards here, because not only are you a regular wizard, Magic's everywhere in these settings, but you can pop out. Question? Yes.
What color are extra wizards?
Extra wizards come in all kinds of colors.
all flavors.
There's a dead one who's colorless.
He knows what I mean.
Yeah.
But there's an alive one, too.
There's a robot. Ugin's dead.
How is the robot?
He's a ghost.
alive? Karn is alive. Just
He doesn't matter anymore.
What is life?
We're gonna get to what is fantasy in a bit. That's fun.
Oh.
All right. Becoming an extra wizard also comes with other perks. Not only do you get to pop into other realities, the universe did roll back some nerfs, some patches to this, as to what the perk package that came with becoming an extra wizard. Some people got some things grandfathered in. Some people were mad about this. This drives some of the storytelling we'll talk about in a bit. So we're talking more about planeswalkers. I said wizards are fucking everywhere. Everyone who is a wizard has this puberty that it wakes up in them. The trigger for this puberty can be anything. So most of the time, it's trauma.
They awaken. Let's go between planes.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like I said, what's on the slides I wrote a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
The kink is called the
but
spark.
yes,
I see.
she got to hold hers and it broke. Soren got his when he took a drink. So it's not always bad. Sometimes it's happy. Presumably, orgasm could cause any strong emotional resonance. That is what
Or literally die.
awakens your planeswalker spark. Sure.
If you Sam it.
So yes, about those nerfs. Those extra wizards originally could live forever. You never died. You had all the powers of a god. You could say, I want to make my own reality. And so like that, whatever you dreamed of could happen. And so these extra wizards that we'll call old wizards had a stupid amount of powers. But eventually, so the more racist, two of the more racist ones, because this was storytelling in the early 80s and 90s, so it was all awful. One to bang the same chick. Instead of pig roasting, anyway, they were fighting over a girl, and the result of it...
Let's not care what old Lee says. This is new Lee.
So at the end of this war, the universe kind of like righted itself and was like, this can't keep happening. What the fuck? So balance paths rolled out, and all of these got turned off. However, all the people who were old wizards still lived forever, but were very aware that I can't do the cool shit anymore. And some, obviously, were quite mad about it and wanted to get that back. So they made deals with demons or tried to suck the juice out of every person who's ever lived. There's a lot. Anyway, one of the old racists is that bastard who's got glowing orbs for eyes.
There was a joke here.
There was a joke here. I hate that joke.
No.
Anyway, the color. The other thing about magic is all of the game pieces take the form of spells. That green border is because we use Google Slides and not PowerPoint. Anyway, each one of these colors of magic sort of define like an emotional spectrum or a philosophy or a concept. And together, by distilling them into those groups, by putting them together, you can tell stories and you can unite peoples or like show contrast through any sort of tribalism, whether you divide people into Rosses and Rachels or whatever the fuck you're doing. Magic does these through colors.
Like a BuzzFeed quiz.
Yep, BuzzFeed quiz. We just did colors instead of I don't know which Pokemon are you.
Number 4 will shock you.
Having quickly run you through the mechanics and what the magic, how the magic story happens and what things happen, we're going to talk about slap. This is probably, if you had to name some, just ask a bunch of nerds in a room, name a place that magic happens. This is the one that they'll probably be able to name even more than the Dominaria one. They'll probably be able to name Ravnica. Ravnica we've gone to a bunch of times, so many times that the return to joke has run its course. We're not talking about the most recent couple, we're talking about the original ones here. So this whole plane is one city. It's on a planet. The city is just infinitely large, and we don't think about logistics of food sources and things like that, because that would be boring for some people. Alright.
There are wizards everywhere.
Yeah, we say the Golgari handle it and we're good.
Yep, the sewer mutants handle our food production.
The sewer mutants handle the food.
It's fun.
And the trash.
They've really got a handle on hydroponics, though.
Yeah.
Originally, they started talking. There was light themes of urbanization and the natural world and things like that. Those quickly got discarded. The other thing that we discarded was talking about
I'll take another land. Thank you.
the people who don't belong to. Most of the people who live here aren't a member of the Cool Kids Color Club, and they're just chaff. We don't care about actual people here. We care about the Cool Kids Color Clubs. But the Cool Kids Color Clubs was the first time that in Magic we united factions by these colors, those earlier philosophies in the wheel that no one had time to read. But by joining them together, we got to understand what factions that identify these unifying ideologies might represent. So emotional aggression and authoritarianism put together, you get cops, military cops. So just like the real world.
I've skipped ahead here. How is the is it spies? Those are mathematical.
That's a typo.
Demir spies.
It should be
That's a
yeah,
typo.
It's supposed to be.
Demir's or
Sorry.
yeah, Demir's.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, I was about to
yeah,
say,
yeah.
just the worst nerds is
Sorry,
the correct
sorry.
you are.
Yeah. Sorry. It
Sorry,
should
I
be
also
continue.
feel as passionately as he does about that.
Yeah.
You're right. There's a
It's another
typo.
question.
Thank you,
That's the Demir.
nerds. Thank you. All right.
There was supposed to be a joke here.
The people I expected to get something from this presentation are giving the feedback. All right.
Actually,
More good things about Slaptown. It's really fucking cool when you get to pit these hypothetical factions against each other and see how they compare and contrast. And you get to tell emergent stories as a result. When you set up a sandbox like this, you get sort of Martin-style writing, where you just put a bunch of pieces on the map and just watch how they interact and mix. Like colored ink drops in a vat of milk, if you've done it in a science class before. Just watching the colors blend together and seeing what happens. You can tell interesting stories that way. Unfortunately, yeah, like here's what I said. Most people on the plane don't belong to these cool kids color clubs. They just get churned out in the middle of the wizard battle as, I don't know, a titan walks through a neighborhood block and they all die. Reality sucks even in all
they
the
really are
fantastic
the
settings.
Avengers. Cool.
Yeah. Oh, right. I said that the Avengers was really bad for fantasy settings in the comment on one of the pictures. Yes, Magic decided that they needed to, after the popularity of the Avengers, they introduced the Gatewatch, which was Magic's Avengers. We want a bunch of recurring characters so people can latch onto a thing so we can make things more marketable. That I'll get back to in a second. This is Magic's main character himself, Mr. Generic White Man.
That's a
Woo.
Yeah.
No, that's a dragon.
oh,
A boy dragon.
Also a boy, but yeah.
Also
no, I
a
don't
dragon.
like dragons.
what's wrong with dragons?
I don't
Dark
know if I'm talking about Armageddon, so
We don't have time.
we're talking about Ixalan. This place is cool as fuck. I could talk for hours about how cool this place is. Yeah, I'm just gonna say it's
And he
fucking
made
cool
Jace
sometimes.
interesting.
Yes, for a short amount of time, Jace didn't suck.
He was interesting.
All right, so there's a couple different groups of people here. There is it's largely Mesoamerican themed. You've got a bunch of people who tame and ride dinosaurs. But the dinosaurs aren't really tame; they just sort of like.
Let it happen.
Yeah, they'll ride the dinosaurs, but the dinosaurs still eat their own people. In general, hopefully they eat other people more than they eat their people. They worship the dinosaurs in sort of like a Old Testament God style of like, fear's good because it can eat, the three-headed giant T-Rex can eat you. Can and will eat you. Anyway, that's the Sun Empire. The larger Mesoamerican stereotypes for like the Maya are being appropriated here in the form of merfolk. But that aren't necessarily in the water. They're like jumping through trees and stuff. It's kind of neat. We're not going to talk much about the racism potential aspects here. We'll do that later because there's a lot. They did a decent job here. It's pretty okay. Up next, we have the Brazen Coalition of Pirates. Magic wanted to do pirates, and here they introduced a bunch of cool fucking pirates. Jace becomes a pirate. That generic white man becomes a pirate. And he wants to have sex with a weird snake-haired lady, Medusas we call them, in other fantasy settings. And it was actually compelling, and at this point, Magic had just gotten back to writing stories, and it's actually really interesting. It kicks off the larger meta plot that we'll talk about the cap of. We won't, I don't think. I cut more for the spark for time. Anyway, there's a MacGuffin here that's all driving things. People can't leave. All those planeswalkers come here, and they can't leave. So they're trapped here. One of the coolest settings, you have an antagonist character here. He's a Minotaur. His name is Angrath. He is the
my favorite.
coolest cow dad.
He just wants to go back to
He
his
just
kids.
wants to go home to his daughters, but he's stuck here with his flame chains that mind control people. And if that sounds like generic fantasy bullshit, it's actually pretty cool.
Put some respect on Angry.
And finally, you have the Legion of Dusk. You have vampire conquistadors. Imperialism is an inherently parasitic practice. You have actual parasites practicing parasite politics. And it's phenomenal! That's the coolest shit. They're sucking on people in two ways.
Yeah.
It's great. It's cool.
Yeah. And fun fact, they find their long lost saint that they worship in a cave who's been like dormant for centuries. They find her and she's like, "What the fuck are you guys doing? Why are you taking over other people's land? That sucks."
This is really fucked, guys.
and they go, that doesn't seem right to me, and continue their ways.
As you would expect them
In
to.
her name.
Misappropriating. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I love that.
I love Ixalan. It's a great setting. It's pirates can actually be cool when they're not just schlock tropes. I have already done the bullshitting for a few minutes. And I have already talked about
It's Becky.
Yeah, the leader of the coalition of pirates is this old ass lady. They're not even taking like a generic cool dude.
No, but you would
Dude,
do
this
that
is
often
cool,
again.
bitchin' ass grandma kicking ass. I talked about the vampire parasites. Jason Braska actually get character development, and it's cool. Jace is a telepath. He gets his mind wiped a bunch of times, which you think that like for the mind mage that would be bad, but they keep resetting his character because they don't know what to do with a generic white man in magic. He's a generic white man. But in this time, he actually gets a neat story. The magic MacGuffin that I talked about that drives the story is neat that it stops people from leaving, so everybody's trapped here and pissed and trying to find a way out. More talking about the vampires. If you had a fantasy faction composed of a bunch of capitalist cannibals, you get the same sort of screaming metaphors at you. The thing is doing the thing. Even the pirates are non-traditionally cool depictions. I talked about the fact that I'm not going to go into the racism. It does an alright job here. We're pretty okay. Said the white man.
There's a joke there.
Yeah, there's a joke there. Anyway.
Oh, sets. That was the beginning of them not doing 3 block.
Right.
sets
3-act stories.
set blocks.
So, did capitalism ruin 3-act storytelling? I was like, what the fuck is it doing?
Yeah.
Right. For a while, Magic was released in 3 sets at a time, and 4 sets would come out in a year. And so you would get to most stories that we've ever told amongst each other are told in 3 acts. You have your first act, which is your exposition, where things are defined. You've got your rising action into your climax, where things happen, and you've got your conclusion, where things resolve, or the tail end of the climax into where things leave off. Magic got to do this through their 3 set structure, where you'd have a big set that it would introduce a place like Ravnica or Ixalan or whatever. Ixalan broke this though, so this is not a bad thing to say. And then you'd have a middle set, which is where you would get to reveal a little more. You get the same characters maybe on the cards that might change a little bit or reflect what's happening in the story. And then in your third act, you could do your big final reveals or heel turns or whatever. And because these take place over 9 months of the year, people would get attached to the acts, the snapshots of your story in time. When you start dissolving that, you start losing. Because when you do it in 2, you've now only got before the story or in mid-story, and then end of story, mid-story, or end of story. Further, Magic will go on to do it in 1. So people know the outcome of a story before they've touched the cards for the first time. This ruins any sort of emergent gameplay stories or attachment to that because they know how it's going. If you open a book, it's a piece of fiction, and you read the last page first, you'll ruin the book for yourself. Guess what? That fucking happens. Alright, Marks and Machines. We talked about 2 good things. We're going to talk about some bad things. The Phyrexians, we're going to start off with a cool, neat thing. Basically, some people watched Hellraiser and were like, metal monsters that don't make any sense are pretty horrific. That is horrific. I think that's universal. There was an oil that a drop of it would convert you into one of these horrific fuck-off machines. Even a drop would slowly pervert your whole body into turbo cancer. So as you can imagine, these things then produce more oil that the cancer spreads.
It's probably
1 drop
Do you have
corrupted
to
a whole
count
metal world.
these oils
How do you count oils?
with oil
That's
counters?
not
Yeah. That's later.
It's cute. It's cute. It's cute. That's actually in this set of trash. Alright, that's the deal with the oil, and what it does is it turns you into... They all share a hive mind, a unified purpose of cancer. They're cool because that's terrifying and weird art people like. Hellraiser is a popular media series.
It's a good flick.
Short plot synopsis was, it starts there, they take over a whole planet, and they're just kind of in the background, because as you can imagine, it's hard to write, I don't know how good guys beat this shit. If they touch them, they all get turned into the fuck-off monsters, and this will just sort of keep happening down the line. So they just sit in the background for 15 or so years, and they don't know what to do with them. But eventually, they decide to do this story because they've exhausted their other storylines through some questionable decisions. March of the Machines ends with an interplanar invasion where they decide to say fuck to the only planeswalkers can leave to other places. Everybody goes and stomps their little happy feet to other places, which that oil should corrupt. But they cut off the big bad lady's head, and suddenly nothing happens anymore. Which doesn't make any sense. And if it sounds unsatisfying and like I just dropped off, that's what the story does. It just says, hey, all the big fuck off threat that the horrifying space cancer spreading just doesn't spread anymore. It's fine. I promise it's fine. Yeah, I talked about that. And then, also as a part of that, they decided to nerf the wizards again. And most of the extra wizards are now just regular wizards. The chick who was holding her spark that I showed breaking, that was during this. You just can't do it anymore. So a bunch of people are mad that they can't do it anymore. But they also open up wormholes everywhere because more convoluted bullshit for characters to multiverse their way together means it's hit for storytelling. We can put marketable characters all over the place. I'm not going to talk about worlds.
You should.
Those
Even mentioning it.
shitty wormholes are how we get to Haha Cowboy Town.
I was wondering if this was just gonna be.
Yeah.
Look, we're just memeing now. Don't worry, we're gonna get pod racing soon.
The hats aren't the problem.
It's pod racing.
Everything else is the problem. You have a centaur wearing spurs. What is a centaur going to ride?
A bigger
Also,
horse.
I don't know.
I
if-
think that's homophobic.
He's
I
gonna
don't know
ride
if
a
you know how
cowboy.
Spurs work, but you kick the horse. This hurts the horse. This is a hate symbol for his people.
Maybe it's
He
like
is
the
wearing
thing.
the tools of his oppressors.
Maybe
He's just
he's
kicking
like
himself.
Why?
So he can go a little faster.
Hey man, we don't
He's
kink
taking
shame
it
here.
back.
Likes when
Maybe
they
he's a
jingle.
leather daddy.
He's taking it back.
Anyway, so this
Yeah.
world is Wild West Town.
Just likes when they jingle.
Wild West Town has some issues. Cowboys and Indians is pretty racist when it's the enlightened white man versus the native savages. So Wizards of the Coast commissioned all the art and designed this setting, and they were like, oh shit, there's some racist shit here that people are going to be upset about because a bunch of woke liberals played our game. What can we do about that? And so they decided that until the story happens, no one lived here. It was empty. And then people came here.
Just cowboys.
And all the cactuses came to life. The savages awakened into enlightened beings when the white man showed up. It's worse. It's just the same thing, but much worse. All right. So the wormholes open up. They open and close randomly. So if one opens up and you're like, oh, I could go through here, you don't know you could ever make it back. It's sort of a one-way trip. Enough people. The story that happens here is there's a forgotten town and a heist, and you need to rob keys for a vault because there's some Borderlands-ass prize locked in this vault. No one knows what it is, just that it's a big deal. I mentioned a forgotten town. This setting goes from having no one in it to having had enough people come, set up towns, and die that towns have been forgotten about in 2 years. Generational events happen in 2 years. I don't know, maybe it's populations of fruit flies that have migrated to and set up these towns that are then forgotten about. Where the town that's forgotten about is where the bandit keeps his stash that you need to rob. It's important to the story that no one knows where it is. You didn't have to write this story. You could write it better. It didn't have to matter that it had been forgotten about. Anyway, yeah.
Bro, who hurt you?
These people.
I care,
These people.
obviously. Right. Giant train lines are built through fuck-off trees in the forests in 2 years. Mega constructs. Half a presidency.
When are we gonna have the bussies? When is that? Like 4 years from now?
It just got delayed because of sewer lines.
See?
No, but it's back again. as of like yesterday.
Oh, we're back. Everybody calm down.
Alright, good.
The big prize
Yeah.
in Borderlands that's locked in the strange alien vault is a fuck-off tentacle monster. The big prize in this set came out, if you looked at the years, a year after the one where they said wormholes exist, wormholes are random, we don't know where wormholes go, and then enough people hop through the wormholes into Pioneer Town in 2 years to do all of this bullshit. But the wormholes are random, that's kind of a big deal, you don't know where they're going to go. It's not like the Planeswalkers who can go, I want to go to Egypt Town now, and they can just hop to Egypt Town. You don't know, they're random. So the thing in the box, at any given point, is a Pokemon. It knows where every wormhole is linked to, all at once. It has this omniscience to these wormholes. So they've introduced a mystery box, like J.J. Abrams, and then immediately introduced the solution to the mystery box. It has been locked in a vault here for countless eons, because we needed the plane to be empty so that we didn't have cowboys and Indians. Here's the art for this terrifying League of Legends fuck-off Pokemon, who is clearly designed to sell merchandise.
He's cute though. He's just a little
Is he?
guy.
Is this cute?
Just a little guy.
Is that merchandise cute? Would you
Yes.
want to look at this?
Yeah.
I don't want to look at it right now. Anyway, we have 2 left. I promise I'm not going to continue too long. Some of you look tired already.
I'm into this.
This setting is about a haunted. It's a horror take on 90s horror tropes. Think Ghostbusters. Think mixing with analog horror tropes of today. This should be right up many of our fucking alleys. This thing, you have good and bad all the time. Even the good things are sometimes horrific here. You have this monster that's been told to hide under a bed. It is doing its best. Yes, so this haunted house has grown to, there's a demon trapped in a house. The house grows and expands. As the demon's like, well, if I'm trapped in the house, then everything's gonna become the house. And this is neat. There's some neat storytelling that happens about like the last forest. They have a set of people set to watch the house because the house can't grow while it's being watched. So they have rotating shifts of guards staring at it at all hours of the day as the house grows to encompass the rest of the cities and the villages and everything else. They have to keep watching this house so it doesn't take their home. That's neat. Like I said, this should be everything I want. Unfortunately, they fuck it up a lot by not understanding what makes horror work. We talked about all that. Things that don't make horror work. The protagonists in this story are survivors that have been trapped in this haunted house. But they want to ape Stranger Things and Ghostbusters. So they've got these kids. Does this kid look like he's been starving, scraping for scraps together, living for months in this haunted house? This is an adult playing a teenager
He
with
looks-
a bunch of injection molded plastic.
He looks like a fitness influencer. Or like a crypto bro.
Yeah, so
Like
like
he got
all of this
canceled on YouTube.
cheap, gaudy plastic and television screens and things that we grew up with don't really have a place in what I would consider fantasy settings. That's not fantastical to me. You have this interesting concept of, I mentioned it in the later slide, but I'm getting to it now because I'm speaking simultaneously. A big problem people have with this storytelling place is that TVs, Ghostbusters, Stranger Things sort of things can't be fantastical to them when the heroes are in Converses that you can go out to a store and buy now. There's not that high fantasy element when it's constantly injected with this regular ass thing that you see all the time. Some people don't have a problem with that. Some people are like, a video cassette tape is horrifying to me. I don't know what it is. There's a generation younger than us that thinks that.
Yeah, BFT #1 was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Anyway, you eventually have the demon haunted house things. Driving a car in a wacky racers thing is the next.
So it's Mad Max?
That is literally the next Magic set that's coming out in a few months. Is wacky racers
Ew.
with the fucking demon that's been locked in this house is allowed to participate in the wacky races
Huh.
because
Yeah,
what is
these are
storytelling
I know you.
coherency?
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
So it's
I didn't know
Mario
about
Kart?
The demon has captured the
Essentially.
Pokemon from the
It's
previous
Death
slide,
Race?
and therefore he's allowed to participate in the wacky races.
Wow.
Yeah, it's trash. Anyway, yeah, there's an interesting concept about what people can consider fantastical and what people want from fantasy storytelling. And watching that intellectual divide happen about people who don't necessarily know how to frame that argument is neat, as people talk about why this worked or didn't work for them. Anyway, continuing on. I don't have time to talk about Turkey yet. A lot of shit happened.
It was sick.
This setting is Prohibition Chicago with magic. There was a soundscape composed. Everything is Art Deco. You have 5 demon crime families that all rule this city. There's no sources of good. There's statues of them, but they're all dead. There's a drug that people thrive off of called Halo. What we end up finding out is that this drug is the crushed up remains put into a meat grinder of all the angels when the demons and angels had to work together to stop that Phyrexian army from attacking their home previously. The demons then stabbed all the angels in the back, ground them into dust, and snorted it like coke.
You know.
Waste not
This
want.
setting has amazing potential. It's also gorgeous. You've got Union steelworkers capturing all those early famous photographs that you've got. You've got a bunch of art snobs who are rigging all sorts of galleries and things like that. You have soothsayers, lawyers. A faction is just the lawyers because you've got to have a justice system. Rigging that justice system to perpetuate the demon.
That's not fantasy,
Rigged.
my brother.
Rigged.
Yes, demons and yeah. And then you have the Great Gatsby style party throwers. These are the 5 major factions of New Japan. And like I said, angels ground up into powder. Everything is gilded. The soundscape, the world building here was amazing, but all of this story was compressed into one thing. So very little happens here. The things that went wrong, the reason this is in this ugly section, that should have faded out. That's awful. Anyway,
Is this also art from that?
yes.
Oh, it's very different.
They dropped that big March of the Machines with all the Phyrexians came through the plains. Their big angel fuck off lieutenant came here. And the steelworkers dropped a building on her and went, I don't know what happened, boss. She was like that when I got to her. Which is cool.
And then
However,
shoots, right?
all of that cool stuff happens in a paragraph. No time was given, no care was given to the setting. In the set's block, very little is spent on caring about this cool world that they've got because they need to set up a main character to run off and go do the thing for the overarching plot. Because we're only in a spot for a short amount of time, we don't get to invest in the world and the places and the stories we can tell yet. Additionally, this is another 3-color set that they hadn't done in forever, where cards can be really hard to play. But everything in this set says, don't worry about it. We'll give you $1 to pay for it. And it makes it really easy. But at this point reached a peak saturation where players got really frustrated with these treasure tokens being a staple to every card. So people didn't like that. And then WotC insists on this being a family-friendly game. In the story, people are snorting crushed up angels.
Angel dust.
But we've got Friday night premieres at local game stores that are family-friendly events. And so people like to dress them in costumes and things like that. You cannot represent any drugs, you cannot represent any guns, you cannot do anything here. And in fact, despite being Prohibition Chicago, which was a problem as a result of the firearms regulation that was, firearms regulations happen as a result of Prohibition, it's core to that sort of setting. There was not a gun in all of New Capenna, and in the March of the Machines there's a magic-ish one gun. The things that gangsters with Tommy guns are iconic to them.
Gun.
There's not. The Holy Frazzle Cannon is the flip card from March of the Machines. There's not a gun before that.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, so WotC had this identity crisis of like, hey, here's a literal fountain of drugs on a card. but we can't pretend that there's alcohol in a glass. You got an image problem when we're trying to market to two different people. The people who would appreciate this Art Deco crime story are not young children, and you need to pick a demographic to market to and tell a story that they will appreciate. When you're trying to get money from everyone, no one's happy with you. I don't have time to talk about Kaldheim's 9 realms. There's a 1-story block, 9 Norse realms. Most people who play this fucking game can't even name a third of them. Anyway. So might have saved these. Giving a shit about the story. People like nerd, autistic weirdos like me give a shit enough to write PowerPoints on it and bore their friends to death. They would give a shit for free. They would try to help you tell a better story if you just asked. But because we have to turn a profit as soon as possible, and those returning sets, those second and third acts of our story don't sell as well because the aesthetic gets tired, or people don't want to see the same thing. People didn't like the first 2, so they're not going to buy the third. This hyperdrive to shareholders is ruining the storytelling in this wonderful game that many people here enjoy. Instead, next year, half the sets that come out for this game will not be Magic Fantasy IP. They will be Spider-Man and everything else. That's not an exaggeration, half of them. Next year, Spider-Man will be able to wear the One Ring, doing Fortnite dances in a TARDIS with his best friend SpongeBob SquarePants. This is not hyperbole. There is zero hyperbole in that sentence.
SpongeBob is a card?
Yes, SpongeBob.
Confirmed next year.
They're releasing
Next
a
year.
SpongeBob set.
Oh God.
Fortnite already exists. The TARDIS already exists. The One Ring already exists.
Why?
Spider-Man. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for encapsulating my whole thing.
Money.
One ring got sold for $2 million.
The one ring. There were the one rings, then there was
They
the one
created
ring.
a chase so people
Yeah.
bought it.
And Post Malone bought it. Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, I've
I
talked
do.
long enough.
I do.
Go ahead.
I seriously want to know, prior